Planet Earth is an enormous place. Even though only 30% of the Earth's surface is land and majority of Earth looks like this, the land we live on still feels endless to us. But have you ever wondered if you could drive in a straight line from where you are right now, disregarding obstacles like buildings, mountains, and small bodies of water like ponds and lakes? How far can you possibly go before you run out of land and hit a major body of water? Or the aquatic version of this question, disregarding obstacles like small islands and reefs, how far can you sail on water in a straight line without hitting land? To answer this question, we have to understand how distance is measured on Earth. You see, on a 2D map, connecting 2 points and you get a straight line. But Earth is a surface. If you connect any 2 points on the surface of Earth with a straight line and look at it from three-dimensional space, it'll actually be an arc. Therefore, the length of this arc is the real distance between any 2 points on Earth. Looking at the two-dimensional world map, it's probably tempting to think a straight line between this point in Spain and this point in Russia, or this line between this point in Finland and this point in Russia on the Eurasia continent is the longest straight line path. Actually, no. You see, if you look at these lines in three-dimensional space, not only do they look much shorter than they appear on the 2D map, but a large portion of them also cross the ocean, making them disqualified for this question. In fact, even if we still consider them qualified, the total distances between these 2 points are actually only 7,255 kilometers and 5,568 kilometers. These distances are not even close to the longest straight line paths that we're going to talk about in the next. Thanks to modern technology, the longest straight line on land has been calculated to be the line between this point on the West African coast near Greenville, Liberia, and this point approximately 100 kilometers northeast of Wenzhou, China. This line looks impossible on a two-dimensional world map, but when you take a look at it from three-dimensional space, it actually starts from Greenville, Liberia, runs across the Sahara Desert, then runs across the Suez Canal, and skims just past the edge of Caspian Sea, through the Himalayas and Yangtze Plain, then finally arrives at Wenzhou, China. The total distance is around 13,588 kilometers. Now we have found out the longest straight line on land, what about its counterpart on water? Using the same method, scientists have found out the longest straight line you can sail on water without hitting any land is the line that begins at this point in Karachi, Pakistan, and ends at this point on the northeast coast of Kamchatka, Russia. Again, this looks ridiculous on the two-dimensional world map, but when you take a look at it from 3D space, it actually starts from Karachi, Pakistan, narrowly runs southwest through the Mozambique Channel, across the South Atlantic Ocean, then keeps heading southwest across Cape Horn to the point where it actually starts heading northwest across the Pacific Ocean, passes through the Andreanov Islands of Alaska, through the South Bering Sea, and finally ends somewhere on the northeast coast of Kamchatka, Russia. The total distance is around 32,040 kilometers. So far, we've been looking at the longest straight lines exclusively on land or water, but I also want to share something even more interesting by asking you this question. Disregarding land or water in between, what do you think is the longest straight line between any 2 points within the same country? To make sure we get the longest straight lines possible, let's also consider any islands, exclaves, and overseas territories a country may have. First, it's tempting to look at countries that are enormous by nature. For example, when we take a look at the largest country in the world, Russia, the longest straight line in Russia probably begins at Adler, Krasnodar, and ends at Medny Island, Kamchatka. The total distance between these 2 points is around 8,075 kilometers. As long as this straight line within Russia sounds, it's not the longest one among all straight line paths within the country. In fact, it only ranks the third. The second longest straight line within the country falls in the United States. Thanks to its expansive overseas territories, the longest straight line within the United States connects Point Udo, Guam, and Point Udo, US Virgin Islands. And yes, these are two different locations, although they have the same name. The total distance is around 15,311 kilometers. However, this distance is still nothing compared to the top one in this category, and that actually belongs to a country that may seem surprising to you, and that is France. This result may seem counterintuitive at first, since we usually don't perceive France as a large country. That is because most of the time we were looking at the metropolitan France, which is very small compared to countries like Russia or the United States. But when we take a look at all its territories in Europe, South America, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, Caribbean Sea, and even Antarctica, things start to make sense. France is much larger than most people think.
Therefore, the world's longest straight line between any 2 points within one country belongs to France. It connects Clipperton Island in the North Pacific Ocean and Trombland Island in the Indian Ocean. The total distance reaches a whopping 18,166 kilometers.
To give you an idea of just how long this straight line is, the longest commercial flight today is the flight from Singapore to New York, which spans 15,348 kilometers and takes about 19 hours to complete. And this line is still 2,819 kilometers longer than this flight. This distance alone is longer than the distance between Lake of the Woods, Minnesota, the northernmost point on the US-Canada border, and Cameron County, Texas, the southernmost point on the US-Mexico border, which is around 2,620 kilometers. Or to put things in the perspective of Europe, this distance is longer than the distance between Paris and Moscow, which is around 2,500 kilometers. What's even crazier? Remember that previously mentioned longest straight line on land? That line is 13,573 kilometers long, and even this line is still 4,564 kilometers shorter than the longest straight line within France. And there you have it, the longest straight lines on Earth, whether they traverse land or water, or even within the same country. It's fascinating to explore the intricacies of our planet's geography and how distance can vary dramatically depending on how you measure it. Next time you look at a map, remember what may seem like a straightforward or ridiculous path in 2 dimensions can reveal surprising twists when viewed in 3 dimensions, and how far extreme points of the even same country can be away from each other. These are the great reminders of the immense vastness and complexity of our world. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. I will see you next time.